Welcome to the Week in Italian Startup, where we discuss the latest highlights happening in the Italian tech and investment ecosystem. Welcome everyone to the Week in Italian Startup, where Nicola and I, we discuss the main news happening in the week in startup land. It's been an interesting week. There is some big rounds. Interesting to see how they're gonna progress. So without further ado, let's start talking about Poste Italiane. So Poste Italiane basically entered, it's the biggest round of last week, is a 27 million round where Poste Italiane entered in the capital of Italian unicorn Scalapay. There you go. Yes, of course. Nick, what's your thinking?
Yeah, ciao Jack, ciao everybody. Well, this is Poste Italiane is not new to this type of rounds in scale-ups. They did a few investments already. It is interesting that they are joining the round Scalapay opened last a few months ago. Mm-hmm. So they're basically topping up the amount and entering into the space. As I said, Poste Italiane now is the Italian post office traditionally, but they have diversified a lot into banking, into payments, into insurance, into telecommunications. They're quite a big player now.
Poste is the improbable VC. Started completely like a public sort of service thing, and now is really doing a 180 to a completely different beast. And it's been really active, as you say, in many deals, especially last year as well. So that was particularly interesting. It was definitely the biggest round of last week, and one of the coolest for sure. Awesome.
In a sense, Poste Italiane is kind of the underdog in terms of thinking about the startup community, no? Because Poste, mail services, that's so boring. They actually are doing a lot in a lot of areas, investing and acquiring startups. So that's probably we should look closer to what they're doing.
Yeah,
I'm saying it for myself.
Who's in charge of that? Who does it? Exactly. Super cool. All right, second biggest round in terms of volume, I would go with Artemest, marketplace for luxury, which raised 15 million euro from two companies. One is a holding, and the other one is a venture capital firm. Very interesting, actually. Like Artemest, not really on the radar in terms of startup land, I would say. Probably very solid value proposition in e-commerce. Basically aggregating a lot of small boutique artists and artisans. So very nice job, and awesome round. It's really huge, honestly. For a marketplace is huge. And I was researching a little bit in terms of the market of the players, and one is Kairos Ventures, which is very interesting. It's a UK based firm. And they're basically building a portfolio of luxury goods with a mission in a way. So for living healthier, happier, and so on and so forth. And another interesting thing is that is led by women. So it's one of the few VC firm which is 80% women led. There you go.
Very nice.
Yes.
Good catch, good story actually.
Yeah, it's awesome story. I didn't know about them, and I was checking out, and it's super interesting.
Yeah, and you're right when you say that Artemis is another bit of this is the week of the underdogs. So this is a startup that you don't hear about a lot, but they actually raised north of 25 million euros, more or less, from several investors, also at the international level. So it's kind of interesting. The brand doing quite well, and I believe the company is led by a woman as well.
Okay. Yeah. So the other part which was interesting is the other investor as well, which is a very interesting holding company, to be honest. And essentially, what they're doing is gathering a lot of luxury goods products. So this is Olma Holdings. I don't know who's behind it, but essentially they're the portfolio. Here it is. We have wines, we have fine food product like a Caviar House in Prunier, very famous in the UK. 3 or 4 different wine companies. watches, 2 different brands of watches, luxury boat rental, and sort of luxury like stay, boutique hotels and things like this. So I thought it was a very interesting holding company. Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree actually. It's a very interesting play to position yourself as a luxury goods investor. And we can see that digital is entering into the debt area. So there are at least 2 companies in from the digital market that are actually selling luxury goods.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was interesting. Super interesting. Right.
Very clear positioning.
Yes, and of course this opens them to a million ways to exit whenever they kind of want. So in very, very strategic money placed on the table for sure. Awesome. All right, moving on with Habacus, a student loan management startup that raising 1.82 million from a syndicate. So I didn't know about Habacus, but yeah, it's interesting for 2 reasons. One is the value proposition, which is one of the first that I see actually doing like student loan like financing in a more lean and digital way. And the second part is that of course we have Liftt, which is becoming omnipresent, and these guys are part of the equity table now. So that was awesome.
Yeah, not much to add here, other than we thought that education was related to complex financial products only in the US or UK, let's say so. But apparently also in the rest of Europe and Italy in particular, this is becoming an issue and something that might need some support in order to manage correctly. And this is a proof that probably the market is moving in that direction as well.
Yeah, totally. Fantastic. All right. Moving on, Genuine Way, blockchain-based service to manage environmental impact of supply chain, raising $500,000 from business angels. This was interesting because this is a very, very solid and well-known application of blockchain technology. So people that argue that blockchain is not pervasive, basically every day there is a disproof of that. And one is this one, which essentially tackles one of the oldest problems in the food supply chain and agriculture. So I've seen a lot of players in this field. I'm sure there will be one which will be the main lead, but a good sign that a lot of people are working on this problem. So that's awesome.
Yep. I have to add that the company is actually Swiss-based.
Okay.
But it is basically an Italian company in terms of team and operations. But again, it's probably proof of how the Swiss ecosystem is much friendlier to blockchain-based companies.
Yeah, no.
So far,
that's absolutely true, and we're seeing that completely. So also with our colleagues in Switzerland, kind of checking the pulse of the blockchain areas. Very interesting. All right, let's talk about Yolo then. Since you guys are directly involved, I was whatever you can disclose, of course, up to a point. But the guys are doing well. It's essentially the value proposition is a very smart way of buying insurance, very modular, very like product based, and that is kind of catering the new generation of people that want to insure to make a product which speaks to them essentially.
Well, I don't have much to add here, other than as you read from the article, the company is considering an IPO. Basically, they're exploring different ways of continuing growth, and the IPO is one way to raise capital, of course, in order to continue the development of the company. They're doing well. They're not doing great. I mean, in terms of value proposition, of course, the pandemic has had an impact on them as well, because originally the product was related to micro insurances for specific events, like I go out and play soccer or football, and pay for a specific insurance regarding their specific match. But if you stop playing football, then there is no opportunity anymore to purchase an insurance. So they weathered the pandemic. It's the time to think about for the funding. So that's the starting point of the reason.
Yeah,
it's all on the table.
Yeah, so what happened? Basically, they broaden the service proposal, so they put more things on the table, so they could maybe, not be as surgical in insurance. They kind of broaden a little bit the spectrum, right?
Well, Yolo developed, in particular, a very specific technology platform that enables to deliver insurance products. And they found out that there are players on the market that are interested in delivering ancillary insurance products through the services or whatever. So there is a white label component, the insurance platform, that Yolo basically white labels to third parties, and Yolo takes care of setting up the insurance product, finding the right partners, and then basically allowing the B2B customer to deliver insurance products to their customer base. So there is this B2B white labeling angle that is working quite well, and then there's the direct B2C angle that's basically you going online and downloading the mobile app and purchasing your insurance products. So basically, you're always diversifying across the spectrum, moving beyond just the just-in-time insurance product.
I see. And what is the logic of IPO in this sense? Like, because it seems that IPOs are becoming more accessible in a way. So it's definitely like a good tool. But what's the reasoning behind in the consideration of Yolo becoming a public company?
Well, as I said before, IPOs are a way to raise capital for the company, first and foremost, and going down the road, of course, to allow the shareholders to monetize, of course, but not immediately, because IPOs bring with them lockups and other periods where the existing shareholders cannot do anything, basically. So now the reasoning is whether to tap the private markets or tap the public markets to raise capital to support growth. So that's the key issue here. That's the public markets are just one of the potential directions, but that's the primary goal. The oldest way you consider public markets gets resources.
Exactly. Pool of resources efficiently allocated for the growth of a company. Interesting. All right, let's talk about new funds. You mentioned that two different funds have actually three, I would say, talking about first AVM Gestioni, which is it's a very well-known SGR, and they are kind of aligning with what is happening in the fund space and the VC fund space, which is the idea of specialized fund, which is really fascinating. Essentially, as a SGR, they launched two different funds. They launched like a few different specialized funds under the AVM Gestioni SGR. One is Sizer, we talk about that, and it's about robotics, right? Or cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity and robotics.
There was, exactly. It was a mix of the two. And now essentially they're like extending, getting into Italian fine food. So that's one specialization, and the other one is about impact. So it's a double product. I take honestly this news as a positive way to sort of seeing venture capital as a specialized business instead of generalistic, more like broad-based funds. So it's not a bad trend, I would say, because then kind of qualifies also maybe a few of the smallest funds that really want to do good into a very, very specific and vertical sector. What is your take on that?
Well, I do agree with you. I tend to see history as waves. There are waves where there are the big generalist investors that cover these broad markets, and that's the first wave. Then the markets gets richer, more nuanced, and you have much where the specific verticals are probably more attractive because you can build in interesting investment thesis, and you can probably foresee good returns by specializing in niches. And this is probably one of we are entering that phase in the market right now. Yes, I wanted to add a little bit because it is very interesting. If you follow the link from the newsletter that goes to the fund page on the website of AVM Gestioni, there are the details of the impact fund, and it's probably interesting to have a read. There are probably two things that comes immediately to attention, if you want. But anyhow.
Let's do it. Absolutely. It's super interesting because I got that ready for Kairos, which is the next fund, which is also impact. So now let's have a look. Let me try and share.
If you scroll down. There you are.
Perfect. Interesting.
So there are a lot of lots of information. So basically, fund size target 50 million. That's pretty average, I would say, for a seed or early stage fund. First close 5 million. That's super interesting because that's a very, very, very small first close.
Yes, exactly.
The second interesting point is the see, if you scroll down just a little bit more, the last line, carried interest, 15% plus 15%, which makes 30%. Industry average is 20. 30%, but 30% where half of it is dependent upon a metric, realized impact adjusted return, whatever that is.
Whatever that is. Wow, that's convoluted. That's a bit convoluted and unconventional.
Well, they came out with a metric. I don't know whether it's theirs or from some kind of public market or some research or whatever, some external actor. They came up with a metric that aligns the funds and the results of the fund from the ESG point of view, not from the pure financial point of view. And they linked it to the carried interest. So the carried is a pure financial, let's say, results, so a pure financial aspect of the fund management, but it is related to a non-strictly financial aspect of the management. And I find that extremely interesting.
Wow, that's unconventional. I don't know. I mean, is it a sign that Italian LPs are getting more sophisticated, or is just one way to kind of rework the carried interest in a more creative way? I don't know.
I don't know. It depends. One of the answers, the fundamental one, is it depends on that metric. How that metric is actually, quantitative, hard and important to reach, and how the impact of whatever that measures is actually meaningful.
Yeah, good point.
For the world and for the people, because that would bring to out of market type of carried interest. 30% for the impact for the VC fund is quite high.
Yeah, also,
that's probably the fundamental answer. Probably the fact that you are marketing an impact fund, it makes it in the current market situation a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
For LPs.
Totally.
That's probably some kind of badging of honor for, I invested in impact funds because that, is nice to say, nice to have today in the current market. So.
And on exactly that note, we've seen another player, Kairos, extending actually the wealth management practice into the impact space. So Kairos is generally like a wealth management company which also does advisory. He provides alternative funds, general like multi-strategy, more of a kind of hedge fund flavor. And now they also have a venture, ESG One, which is their own like impact fund. So I thought also that was particularly interesting. And we have a little bit less information. We have a little more information in terms of verticals. It's really broad-based, I would say, from life science to space economy. It's definitely not a specialized one. It's good in a sense that wealth management companies are looking into the space as an asset class, as a reliable asset class to offer their customer base. But it's a long way before, probably we're going to see something vertical, something specialized at least from the wealth management part. Mm-hmm. So, there you go.
Yeah, I would say, if I may, this is not really a pure impact, more than ESG compliant fund, which is a bit,
good point.
A bit easier in terms of complexity from the non-financial point of view.
Yeah.
So ESG is a bit of a softer approach to investments when compared to impact. But yes, I mean, it's good to have more money investing in the market, investing in deep tech, because space, life science, and so on and so forth are basically deep tech investments. So a lot of research. You need a lot of capital to come up with something interesting. Mm-hmm. So good to know. It's helpful for us as well, because we do have our own space fund, and we see how much money you need to actually start and scale anything in the space. Unless you want to use some data, that's
data is easy. Software,
that's easy.
Software is easy,
but all the rest requires time and money. So
very interesting, awesome, fantastic. All right, to end up on a very interesting note, which is good news for women entrepreneurs, which is the allocation of 200 million for women entrepreneur in Italy. And it's basically what is defined as a fondo perduto, which essentially is the government subsidizing qualified businesses led by women and founded, of course, by women and run by women. So that this is a very, very awesome news, which doesn't only cover, to be honest, reading through the details, tech in general, but also other kind of entrepreneurial activities. So it's a very, very good way to push women in business in general, overall.
Yep, I totally agree. I'm very happy for this fund, for this capital being available for women-led enterprises in any sector. Yeah. The article linked in the newsletter has a good overview, I believe, of all the key aspects of how to apply and what are the targets of the fund. Let's call it fund. So I believe for the women entrepreneurs listening to the podcast and reading the newsletter, it's a good opportunity to get to some more capital for their enterprises.
Yeah, and on the LP side, what I've seen also more and more, both angel investors being women and supporting women-led startup, and at the same time, I've been in contact with the women fund manager trying to raise capital for women-led startups, which definitely is a little bit of an underrepresented category. So awesome news overall, I would say, not only from the state part, but also from the private capital markets, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. This one was a women-friendly newsletter this week. Artemis with Kairos Ventures, this fund. Yeah. So I'm very happy. So that's
good project.
Stuff is moving.
Totally. All right, I think that's it for the week. Nick, thank you very much for joining. And guys, we're available on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcast. And of course, subscribe to Nicola newsletter. And I'll see you all next week.
Bye-bye, everybody. Ciao, Jack.